Everybody, welcome from Châteauroux, France. It is the day before Easter, and behind me you'll see Notre Dame Cathedral. That's where I will be celebrating um, Easter tomorrow. So, wherever you were the day before, because you'll probably see this on Monday, I wish you a happy Easter. He is risen indeed. MSOM 602, and I wanted to take some time to go over lesson 5 and review lesson 5 and then preview lesson 6 coming up. We're on the downhill run now, so not much more time left in the course. So let's get started. Lesson 5 this week talked about your leadership point of view. And one of the interesting things that you find is that whether you think you are or not, much of what you go forward with in your life has been influenced in some form or fashion by other people. And the influence can either have a positive or negative effect. You could either have someone who influenced you in one direction and you went in the total opposite direction because you didn't like that influence. But I do think it's important to fully understand, regardless of whether you agree with the influence that that person has had on you in your personal life, your professional life, or in your spiritual life. I think it's important that you recognize those things. Doesn't mean that you have to agree or like them, but just recognize them because I do believe they have an impact. And that was a discussion board this week. This week on the memo exercise, the final one, you wrapped up your discussion with your employees of your department or of your company on the entire move to servant leadership. And the last one, the last memo exercise was on so what, or how is this change going to impact me personally, not you, the writer, but the employee directly? Because I firmly believe that if leaders do not develop something that sticks, it's called the stickiness of a concept. If they don't develop something that sticks, then all this is for naught, right? I mean, everything becomes just a saying or something that you just bypass. And so the goal in any type of change is to make sure that change sticks. And in order to do that, many times leaders, I believe, have to be on the cutting edge to say, this is how this is going to benefit you. And help them drop the breadcrumbs, if you will, or connect the dots or pull those things together. And then the application this week I thought was one of the best in the Alan Lurie book because this is where the rubber hits the road on servant leadership. When Lurie was talking to the rabbis graduating, in essence what he was saying is just don't make this servant leadership up here. You have to go forth. You have to put servant leadership in action. And so my hope for you in this class is that this just doesn't become something that you studied, but it's something you can take the concepts and put into action as you go forward. Lesson 6. Lesson 6 talks a bit more about leadership exemplars. Now, these may be people who you've never had any type of experience meeting, but leader exemplars are those people who are serve as examples of leadership. And there's some good things and bad things about leadership examples because I guarantee you, you show me someone who is put on the pedestal of being a leader, and I'll show you somebody who's been a disappointment to someone as well. And so we put our leaders on a pedestal sometime, and they get knocked off very easily. Think about that from maybe a church perspective. Maybe you had a pastor or someone that you followed who let you down. And so you have to be very careful when we start putting that example of leadership or exemplar in front of people. But I'll be interested to see the names and the selections, and particularly why you chose them as leadership examples. Discussion 2, there are 2 discussion boards this week and 1 application. Discussion 2 talks about situational leadership. Now today, everyone wants to get hung up on fairness. And fairness to some people is everyone needs to be treated exactly the same. That's a tough deal in leadership because people are different. And so is it right, is it fair, if you will, to treat everyone the same if they're different? And so I used to have a thing at Conagra that I didn't want people to be fair and equal, but I wanted the treatment of them to be fair and equitable. And it's really different, the difference in the definitions of the word equitable and equal. I wanted people to have the same opportunities, those types of things. But you have to take into account the strengths of individuals. You have to take into account um, the differences that people have, or you'll create frustration with everyone because you'll try and shoot for the middle and no one's going to be happy or no one's going to be successful in those areas, okay? So situational leadership is something that Ken Blanchard talks about, and I wish I had a class, I could teach a class on situational leadership. He actually had written a book on that, and it's a real good read. So be interested to see your discussion comments on that as well. And then finally this week, the assignment deals with self-leadership. How many leaders have you seen that are great outward leaders, but when it comes to managing themselves, not so good? And so what I'm trying to challenge you with in that assignment is to not only look on the outside, but look on the inside and design things to show self-leadership. Okay? I hope you all have a great week. Again, totally accessible here in Châteauroux, which, by the way, means many chateaus. We're here, but it's about 2 hours west of Paris, and very nondescript town. I mean, beautiful architecture. But we just wanted to come someplace where we could sit down and not do anything and live like a local for a few days, and that's exactly what we've been doing. And so, let me know if you need me. Chat with you soon. Take care.